Hello.
Morning, Gary.
Okay.
Good
All
morning.
right. So I believe it's 9 o'clock, right?
Yes.
So Tom, here we go. Technology survives.
Well, welcome all. It's great to have you to the District 5960 Grants Management Seminar. Thank you for taking time off on this windy, as I understand it, windy morning in Minnesota. I will not rub it in, but it's bright and sunny and headed towards 90 in Arizona today. So let us introduce ourselves and we'll begin the program. I'm Tom User, member of the Roseville Rotary Club, and I am District Foundation team lead this year.
And I'm Margie Horning. I'm from Stillwater Sunrise, and I'm the district grants team leader.
I'm Glenn Bowers. I'm a member of the Arden Hills Shoreview Club, and I'm a member of the district grants team.
And we're
Well,
happy
we
to
have
have them.
like a normal Zoom meeting, we have a few housekeeping rules. Please, during the presentations, keep yourself muted, but keep your camera on. We want to see your smiling faces during the whole presentation. If you haven't done it yet, rename yourself to include your club. And if you don't know how to do that, you hover over your photograph in the Hollywood Squares version you're looking at. And there's upper right corner, there's 3 dots, click on that. And at the bottom of the drop-down menu, it says rename. So you can just add your club to that, please. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat box because we'll be monitoring that and we'll go back to those questions at the end of the presentation. Along the way, we're going to have a few poll questions. Make sure you answer each time the poll shows up, because that's how we're going to track your attendance. And yeah, we're tricky. We're going to have multiple ones, including one at the end, to make sure that you pay attention during the presentation and stay on for the whole time. And then at the end, we'll have the question and answer period where we'll reference anything that's put in the chat box, but then you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand and ask a question there too. And if you have any technical questions, please send a chat to Kathy and she'll help you out. So Tom.
Okay, let's begin. So there are several purposes for our seminar today. Excuse me. We want to share the requirements on grants so that you can put together not only an acceptable one, but a really successful one for the best possible grant. We want to make the process as easy as possible for you. And so we'll go through some of the grant process steps to broaden your knowledge base. And lastly, the Rotary Foundation requires that a club be qualified to sponsor a grant. So your participation today will help you qualify for a grant in 22-23. This is only for 22-23. So if you are one of those folks that plan way far ahead and we're thinking about the following year, you'll have to come back next year.
All right, going over the agenda some here just quickly. Tom's just told us what the purpose of the grants management seminar is. We're going to hear a little bit from incoming district governor, since this pertains to grants for next Rotary year, so it'll appropriate for Dale to be the one talking to us. We'll spend a little bit of time, many of you might be fully versed in the Rotary Foundation, but we'll explain a little bit about its functioning and how it applies to these grants. Talk about the difference between a global grant and a district grant. Give you an update on what kind of money is going to be available next Rotary year to be applied to grants within our district, district designated funds. Talk some about how do you create a district grant? What are some of the tools to achieve success? And very importantly, and I'll harp on this a bunch of times, document retention, what you need to keep and why you need to keep documents. Tell you a little bit about what we feel are principles of successful grants. And then, like I said, we'll end with the question and answer period at the end. So here's that first poll here. It's in the chat. Put your name and your club affiliation. This is how we're going to be taking attendance. So this attendance at these seminars is required to be able to get grant funding. So you want to make sure your club gets that credit. All right. Tom.
And to set the stage for our presentation today, it's my honor to welcome the 2022-23 District Governor, Dale Quigley. Dale?
Good. I even remembered to unmute myself. So it's a good morning. Oh, thanks, Tom. So thank you all for coming to the Grants Management Seminar. There are lots of reasons that people join Rotary, but for me, it's always been the focus on doing good in the world. And that is what the Rotary Foundation and the grant process is all about. It's about doing good. I don't know how many of you have heard Jennifer Jones' speech about her theme, Imagine. Imagine the world in which you would like to live, where there's peace, clean water, equal opportunity. In a nutshell, where everyone has the chance to reach their full potential. Imagine that world and then figure out how you and your club can move us in that direction. That is the task before you. When you consider your grant applications, please ask, what changes, what projects will have the greatest impact on my community? Sometimes we have just the right club members with their pulse on the community to know what projects we start now will lay the foundation for long-lasting change. Sometimes we don't. So please talk to the leaders in your community. For example, if you're working on literacy, then please talk to the teachers, the principals, the school boards, and figure out how you can use your resources of time and money to have the greatest impact. Sometimes we think a project is just too big, but let me tell you, no project is too big. And if you want the example of what you can accomplish with belief, then please talk to Sylvia today. But if you think a project is too big, maybe it just needs to be divided down into some smaller projects, or maybe you just need partners. Kiwanis clubs, Lions clubs, veteran organizations, the PTA. The goal is not to be able to say that we did something alone. The goal is to make the world a better place, and the more people with the same goal, the better off we are. As I say that, I want to stress how important it is for your clubs to go onto My Rotary and document your projects. And I mean all of your projects, not just the ones where you receive grant money. Sometimes we think this service project is just too small to matter. No reason to mark down the fact that we served a community supper for 50 people. That's no big deal. But let me explain. There are over 46,000 Rotary clubs worldwide. If every single club served one community supper for 50 people, then Rotary served over 2.3 million suppers. If every Rotarian volunteered 1 hour a month to a service project, then Rotary volunteered 16.8 million service hours. Each Rotary club is a piece of a puzzle. Sometimes the piece is distinguishable as a window or an eye, but most of the time it looks like very little. It's only when it's added into the whole that you see its magnificence. Our legacy as Rotarians is not what one club can accomplish, but what as an organization we can accomplish together. So please add your piece of the puzzle on My Rotary. So now thank you all so much for coming to the seminar, coming to the workshop, and for doing good in the world. All right, Tom, back to you.
Thanks, Dale. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about this animal that we call the Rotary Foundation. We see those letters TRF a number of times. I still think we should change it to ORF, so we refer to it as our Rotary Foundation. I love the numbers that Dale shared with us about the number of service hours and so on. I was at a Rotary Club meeting down here in Arizona last week, and someone had done some other research online and suggested that maybe in total in 2021-22, Rotarians may have contributed 64 million hours of service to our communities one way or another. So let's take a look at how does Rotary Foundation go about serving people? Well, the best way to take a look at that picture, I think, is to have this slide here to talk about the 7 areas of focus: peace building and conflict prevention, disease prevention and treatment, water sanitation and hygiene, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, community economic development, and the environment. There'll be discussions, especially when we have another seminar follow-up on global grants, but certainly any global grant has to fall into one of these areas of focus. And as the grants committee here has reviewed grant proposals, often we see a way that a project can probably fit into 2 or 3 of those. And so that's how we go about serving our community. It is tough to summarize all we do in the Rotary Foundation. You know, I've been in Rotary, and the foundation is my passion, because way back when I was able to be a group study exchange team leader. But so after some 40 years in Rotary, I'm still learning what we can do to serve people. So in the broadest sense, what we do in Rotary is to create positive peace. And so here it is. This is how that service comes together so that we can make a difference. Positive peace is the fulfillment of all needs in society. And again, Dale really set the stage for all of this. Where peace often is mistaken for the absence of war or violence, and of course, that's very much on our minds right now, there is a much broader definition that focuses on creating a fair, just, and fulfilled society. Some examples of how we create positive peace. Let's take a look at some recent grants. Hudson Daybreak Club decided to address the need in their city and the surrounding communities during the COVID pandemic, but with the issue of food scarcity. So they sponsored a district grant that would help fill the shelves of a new food bank. The food bank serves more than 35 food pantries and even a few pop-up pantries. They didn't do it alone. 9 clubs joined them, and they got the job done. That definitely was creating a peaceful society at that point in time for all of us. Another example of Rotarians creating positive peace is a White Bear Lake project, where they wanted to improve the living conditions for teachers in a school in Kenya. They provided funds for a large rainwater catchment tower, tank and shower, and also toilets for teachers, along with water for cooking, drinking, and cleaning the school. Again, creating positive peace for all in that school community, the teachers, their families, and most importantly, the girls they are educating. There are countless examples of these kinds of experiences that we do to create positive peace, and that's why we're here today. More importantly, the Rotary Foundation is the vehicle that helps us maximize the impact or the positive peace that we can create in the lives of other people. And giving to our Rotary Foundation is the key to making that happen. So how can we support the Rotary Foundation, and how does it work? Well, we make our gifts to 3 potential parts of the foundation. We're going to spend a little bit more time talking about the annual fund, but of course we have Polio Plus, and we had our campaign last fall. Our district continues to be among the leaders in the zone in terms of support of Polio Plus. And for those people who are able to make larger gifts that go into the endowment, so that the earnings from that will come back again as DDF to our district, that we can do the projects, that kind of things we're going to be talking about today. But annual fund, we give our money to the annual fund. Rotary invests it for 3 years, using that interest to cover some of their operating expenses. And then they divide that up 50-50, with 50% going to the World Fund. And these are funds controlled in Evanston, if you will, but they've been used to support the peace centers for Polio Plus. And more importantly, I think for us, that's the pool of money that we get as match for our global grant projects. But the important one that we're talking about today is the district designated funds. 50% of that money that we gave 3 years ago comes back to the district, And then we can use it for global grants, district grants, and Polio Plus. One of the things I'd like to stress on you is to make sure that your clubs set a goal for the annual fund and then post that on My Rotary at your club's location on My Rotary, so that you've got that as a target to kind of keep in front of people. And as grant sponsors, you're make sure now that you promote giving to the Rotary Foundation, so that you can have the funds today because of what you did 3 years ago, and so that what you will give in your years as a leader in your club, that money will be available for your club to use 3 years from now. Margie, it's all yours.
All right. One of the things that we need to talk about today are the difference between a district grant and a global grant. So first, we're going to talk about district grants. And district grants are the tools that Rotary districts use to support short-term humanitarian projects that benefit a community. Now, where can those grants be held? The location can be anywhere. Unlike a global grant, a district grant can be local or in most international countries. As you can imagine, the smaller dollar amounts are used for the grant budget, and they're also smaller in scope. Dale talked about kind of making your idea a little bit smaller, and district grants are a perfect way to do that. They are short-term in nature. Usually, we would like them completed within 12 months of approval. But with things going on, we certainly understand when they go beyond that time frame, and that is absolutely not a problem. International partners, if you're working in a country outside the United States, are encouraged, but they are not required. An example of this being an important factor would be, say you're working with a village in Africa, and the grant, you want to do a grant in that village, but it's so remote that there's not a club, a Rotary club, reasonably close to the project site to oversee the project as your partners. Remember, a lot of countries do not have the highways that we have here in America. Because an international partner is not necessary for this particular district grant, it can move forward. So important about our district and the match. Right now, we will match dollar for dollar up to $3,000 per club. And the maximum match on any one district grant is $12,000. So as an example, say you've got a $24,000 grant. If 4 clubs each contributed $3,000, you could get that maximum district match of $12,000 for that particular grant. But I'll show you some other examples of how this works in a few minutes. And like we talked about, progress and final reports are due to the district. And I might add that the reports are just as important as that original application. We are fiduciaries of this money, and we want to make sure that it's going to the right people for the right purpose. So now let's talk about global grants. Global grants, as you can imagine, are a bit or a lot more detailed. I'll briefly touch on some of the major points, but actually we'll be covering global grants more in depth at our 2 global grant workshops that will be offered this spring. In fact, the first one will be next Thursday. The location, unlike a district grant, it must be international. It has to be in a country other than the United States. The scope of the project is larger, and the minimum project budget to be eligible for a global grant per Rotary International is now $30,000. And in our district, every district is a little bit different, but we would need at least $10,715 coming from either District 5960 sponsor and partner clubs or clubs in any other district in the world to make up that $10,715. For a global grant, you also need a host club. Now, what's a host club? That is your international partner in the country where the grant is taking place. So for instance, if you're working in Uganda, you would need a Rotary Club in Uganda in order to be to have this happen, and they have to be qualified, and there's a bunch of other stuff. But that is what the host club or the international partner is. The grant concept, as we had that video or that picture before of the 7 areas, a grant concept for a global grant must fit into one of Rotary International's 7 areas of focus. And there's a policy document out there that I can send to anybody, and you'll get it if you do the global grant workshop. It's called the Area of Focus Policy Statements, and it's a great tool to explore things that you can and can't do to help humanitarian issues, to help mitigate humanitarian issues. And obviously, there are many, many other requirements for a global grant, but don't let that scare you away. You've got a whole cadre of mentors that can help you and people that are experienced, but we're learning something every day. But some of the things that you need are a needs assessment. Does the community really need and more importantly, want what you're offering? Training plans. If you don't have training plans, you really don't have that sustainability and that continuity. And sustainability is one thing that global grants, it is a requirement and you have to document. Measurement, and there's a number of other things. But please don't let that scare you away. Be thinking about the end result of all the people that you will be helping. And believe me, it will be worth it. So now district grant funding examples. If you're doing a single club and it's a $10,000 project, now you're going alone, you think, oh yeah, I can do this. Well, here's how that would work. The district's maximum match for any one club is $3,000. So in this example, the club would have to come up with $7,000 for this $10,000 budget. But now let's look on the other side if you had a partner. Now multiple clubs are participating in a $10,000 project. Say you've got 2 clubs involved, they each put in $2,500. The district's maximum match in this case is $2,500 per club or $5,000. So by involving other clubs, you can request more DDF, district designated funds, for the district match for your grant. And I truly like partnering because it allows other clubs to lend a hand and it frees up club funds to be used for another project. And, you know, if you're part of a project, whether you're the lead or not, I think it gives your club a lot of pride, if you tell them about it, of course, that, hey, we are involved in this food shelf. We've helped to feed hungry families and things like that. Anyway, Glenn is going to continue on and tell us a little bit more about district grants.
Thanks, Margie. As Margie mentioned, district grants can be done either locally or internationally. And we wanted just to show you a couple of projects as examples for both types of categories. A couple examples here on district grants being done locally. 4 clubs showed a renewed interest in creating a better environment by sponsoring grants that included pollinator gardens, distributing pollinator-friendly seed packets, and eradicating Eurasian water milfoil from a local lake. Another example on the right, in the desire to serve veterans, the Elk River Rotary Club took the Shark Tank bait and applied for a grant to purchase a 6-passenger electric transport cart for the Magnus Veterans Foundation. This cart is being used primarily to provide assistance to veterans with mobility issues as they navigate the grounds while seeking treatment and participating in Magnus Veteran Foundation programming. These grants are proof that small clubs partnering with other clubs can make big things happen. I'm moving on to a district grant that's being done internationally. On the left, it's a village in Uganda. Will soon have a supply of fresh potable water for their community. Local labor is being used to dig trenches where the water pipe will be laid. The best news is the international relationship that is being forged with the Mobali Club in Uganda. As Rotarians in District 5960, we had the ability to extend our reach beyond the boundaries of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And in the other picture, we see another example, which is a solar light project in Ethiopia. One Roseville Rotarian saw a need in the small farming village and jumped on a solution. Solar lights were distributed to 225 families. The project will provide lights for the community who are not able to get electric light since they are residing in a rural part of Ethiopia. The lights will help their school children get enough study time to do their homework. Now, thinking about some examples of global grants, Stillwater worked with the Bangui Rotary Club on a global grant that addressed the medical needs of women and children in rural, the Central African Republic. As a result, a medical clinic in Central African Republic was the recipient of medical equipment and supplies. Education and training for the mothers and the medical staff was a big part of the success of the project. Visits to the clinic exceeded 1,000 in December 2021 alone. And here's an example of another global grant that used our foundation dollars in action in Peru. This grant is one of the first to utilize the environment area of focus. Families in the small agrarian community of Wheelock participated in building their greenhouses and were trained in new sustainable farming techniques. They now have the ability to grow more nutritious food for their families. Rotary can change lives one project at a time. I'm sure if you talk to any of the Rotarians from any of these sponsoring clubs, you'll find out that doing these projects did have a positive impact on them as well as the communities they served. It just doesn't get better than that. Margie.
All right, now, there's one thing that just always brings great joy to my ability to tell you about it. There is definitely magic in how club dollars are matched for a global grant. As you can see on the screen, the minimum amount of a project funded by a global grant is $30,000, and many are way more than that amount, but that's the minimum. And in our district, we will use our district designated funds, DDF, to match club cash contributions 1-to-1 with a limit of $25,000. The Rotary Foundation will match DDF on a 0.8-to-1 or 80%. So in all, the clubs put in $10,715. The district matches it with $10,715, and the Rotary Foundation also comes up with an 80% match of $8,572. Now, the real exciting thing is where did that DDF from both the district and the foundation come from? It came from folks who give to the foundation in our district. So it comes back to us and we can utilize how those dollars are spent. And I just think that that's pretty darn good. But it's also, for those of you in the money world, it's a pretty darn good return on our dollars. So Glenn, take it up from here.
Thanks, Margie. One thing I know everybody's interested in today is what kind of money is going to be available next Rotary year. So let's talk about that a little bit. Where are we at? Well, this current Rotary year, we were able to award almost $92,000 in DDF to district grants. But the bang for the buck was greater than that because the total project value with other contributions coming from clubs and other sources was over $291,000. So big impact on how we were able to save lives and impact people locally and globally. So we're estimating this today that we'll have $92,000 about to award to district grants starting in July for the 22-23 Rotary year. So about the same level we were this current Rotary year. And Margie covered this quite well earlier that, with these district grants, you can get up to $3,000 per club. But if you partner with other clubs, you can get up to $12,000 per project grant. Well, one thing that we've run into the past several years is that we've had more requests than the money available. So it just shows we need to give more money to the foundation. And it also shows that the interest in grants continues to grow within our district. So there's been a shortfall, right? More demand than money available. So if there's a shortfall, we try to be as fair to all concerned as possible in allocating the DDF. And the grants team uses a matrix for this calculation, which Tom will talk about. Hey, you're muted, Tom.
Now I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
Sorry. So the matrix is as follows. We take a look at the per capita giving by your club for the last 3 years. We look at the participation in grants by your club in the last 3 years. We look at the number of grants that your club may have sponsored in the past 3 years. And then the fourth component is that subjective evaluation of the purpose of the proposal in terms of how does it serve your community and work towards that ultimate goal of ours of creating positive peace. Now, first poll question. It's time for you to get back to work. Where can the district grants be completed? Please select one of these.
Tom, I'm not sure if you saw that on your screen, but we did share the results. You can go on to the next.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So let's, where are we at here? Marge is going to take us through the grant creation process in a minute, but I want to first take a minute or two to make sure that you understand what is required. Of course, attending this seminar today is one of those. I'm confused because my screen looks different. There we go. The club must be in good standing, both in terms of dues to the Rotary, but just as importantly, if you've been involved in a grant, make sure that those reports are being done. And those are so vitally important. We have a big picture kind of a requirement with Rotary International to make sure that grants are current and so on. And from the experience that we've had over the last few weeks in terms of promoting the Share the Love campaign, those final reports give us then the kind of information that we can share across the district in terms of what you have accomplished with your grant. And then finally, you'll need to complete the memorandum of understanding and the district addendum to that. And I believe you received those in an email, probably just yesterday. Margie?
All right. Well, now we're going to talk about the creating of a district grant and some of the mechanics. The focus of this seminar, as you probably guessed by now, is district grants, but the basics are pertinent for a global grant as well. Well, the first thing you need to do is come up with an idea. Projects that support the goals and mission of Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation, and ones that also promote Rotary awareness. Good grants engage members. They support meaningful service projects and provide a meaningful impact long after the grant is completed. One of the ways to come up with these ideas is brainstorm with your club. Make it a fun event. You never know where a great idea may come from. And remember, for a district grant, the projects can be local or they can be international in scope. But one thing that's very important, especially when you're dealing with international communities, is to respect the wishes of the receiving community. Is the project something that the community wants and needs? Does it strive to understand and appreciate its culture and community traditions? And Rotarians, of course, should be directly involved, and that isn't just fundraising. Media, get the word out, talking with people, working with the organization you think you might want to work with to come up with a great project idea or a few things. And very importantly, the project cannot be one that has already started. It must be new. Now, the grant application that Glenn will show us in a second here, on the second page, it has a list of eligible and ineligible projects per Rotary International. And so if you're questioning, does my idea fall into eligible or ineligible, you can look at that, or you can contact me or any one of the mentors for a second opinion, if you will. So thanks, Glenn, for that. Now, you've already come up with the idea, but you need a team. You need champions that are going to help lead this particular grant. Then usually you can think of it as there's 3 people, and then there's a lead or a primary contact. And that project could be, or that person could be like a project manager, like someone you've worked with, or they can be the emotional lead, the person that's really got that feeling that, oh gosh, I want to be part of this, and the ability to change the lives that we're talking about. Then you need a finance person, a person in charge of budget, fund management, and stewardship guidelines, and proper record keeping. It's not enough that you're doing the grant, but you have to, if you will, prove that you've spent the money appropriately. So be thinking about that as you go through. One of the other things is to be a promotion. The third person, the person that lets everybody know what's happening. It doesn't do us any good if the only 3 people that know about the project are the project team. You need to let your club know, your partners know where you're at, what you're doing, what the process is, what things are happening. So how do you do that? Well, you can tell a little story and email it out to your partners. Take pictures. Pictures tell 1,000 words, and really use your social media to kind of report on the impact of what the project is all about. But for sure, make sure that everybody on the team knows their role and is on board with the project. Another caveat would be to watch for team members with a possible real or perceived conflict of interest. For instance, it could be someone who works for the organization benefiting. They probably are not the best choice for a project contact. And number 3 would be request a mentor. District 5960 has a whole team of mentors ready, willing, and able to help you with your grant. And they'll assist you with, if you need help, defining your concept's acceptability and putting that grant idea into the grant application. In other words, your mentor will walk by your side and help you navigate the ins and outs of the grant process. So now you've got that under wraps. Now you want to build a plan and set the budget. Well, describe your project, and we've really helped you out with our new application. We've got 2 very short things. Tell us exactly what you're requesting the funds for and how much you're requesting. And that there's 2 little sections in our new application. So we know up front, oh, we don't have to read through 3-4 pages to find out, oh, shucks, that's what they're asking the money for. We, as readers of your document, know exactly what you're asking for. And it also makes it clear for you too that you're not going off on a tangent on something that isn't pertinent to the project. In other words, that goes with the be clear. Stick to the definition of the project and how it will benefit the intended beneficiaries. Don't add lots of information and language that really isn't pertinent to the project. Another thing, like all good grants or writing, is to use compelling language. You want to make people be interested in what you're offering. State how the Rotarians will be involved, because remember, Rotarian involvement is very important. And some examples would be for the pollinators. You know, our team will help clear the site for the pollinator garden. Or we interviewed the organization and explored their needs and based our grant on that input. Now, you also want to figure out a reasonable timeline. You know, we would like the project, of course, to be completed within 12 months from approval, but we understand, we meaning the team, that is not always possible, especially with COVID and the things going on. So don't let that scare you away. It's just be thinking that if you can get it done within 12 months, that would be great. Get estimates for the components of your project. In other words, that's part of the budget. Don't guess. The budget should be a reasonable snapshot of what your actual expenses will be. And indicate who will own and maintain, very important, the equipment, who will operate and secure the items that are purchased with the grant funds. And remember, a Rotary Club or Rotarians cannot own the equipment. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Ofac. That's Office of Foreign Asset Control. Now, this is a requirement of the US government. The government does not want money being diverted to terrorists. So this is their way of making that maybe, and of course, this can always go outside the boundaries of it. But if your grant is in a foreign country, we would check the list to see if the country you will be working in is on the Ofac list. Now, important, it does not mean that the project can't be done. You just have to complete the Ofac review checklist showing that your money is not going to terrorists, if you will. And believe me, your mentor can help you over this hurdle. So don't let that be a stumbling block. Now, the next thing, you've got everything organized, so you're going to submit your proposal. And the proposals this year are due June 3rd, 2022. So you've got a couple of months to get your idea going. And important, there's 11 sections on the, I shouldn't mention that because you'll probably get scared off, but please don't. You only need to complete the first 4 sections of the application. So don't let that frighten you. Then once you get that done, you email it to your mentor and they will work with you. And if it needs tweaking or there's questions, we'll get back to you so you're all ready to go. Now, the proposal is approved by the grants team and the DDF at 92,000 thereabouts. We don't know the exact amount, but at least 92 will be allocated to each and every grant. And then, you would be presenting your grant, your proposal, if you will, at a special meeting on June 17th. And that, like last year, we had 20 different clubs with different grant ideas, and they presented to the group, you know, via Zoom, what their project was, what they needed, and if they needed partners. So this is a great place also to connect, hear about other projects and say, you know, our club's got some extra money, we could help that club out. So it's a great way to do that. But one of the things would be is that after that, there's a few other hoops that we have to go through. Okay, and those hoops are, you've presented your project, the DDF is awarded, and I'll let you know what that is. Remember, you can't start your project. But as we talked about earlier, if we have more requests for funds than we have DDF available, we will use those 3 hard criteria and the 1 subjective criteria to decide on the match. But again, do not start your project until our block grant has been approved. And our block grant would include, like if I used last year as an example, all 20 grants. I put descriptions of that, and that's why it's important to be very clear about what you're asking for so that RI does not come back with a bunch of questions for me. And usually about mid-July is when I hear back from RI that they have approved our block grant. In other words, our $92,000. I will let you know as soon as that happens, and then you can start your project. Okay. So Glenn, back to you on the funding.
Okay, and Margie kind of talked about, it's a two-stage process, like she said. There's a proposal on the front end, and now I'm going to talk about the application. And I've seen people get confused. I think a proposal is more like you're submitting a concept, and the concept has to have, meet certain criteria, and then based on that, we'll get back with you. So it's never too early to work on your funding. But having said that, you don't have to have all your funding in place for the proposal. You have to have all of it in place to submit the application. And if I can get to the application here, I can find my mouse. And scroll down to the right page. You've got your budget, but then we get to the finance planning. And this is where, when you submit the application, you need to have specifics. You need to have who's going to be giving you money. And you're going to go out and maybe ask for partners, reach out to other clubs to ask. Be prepared for that club to say, hey, we want you to come and give a presentation. And maybe that's even the best approach. You know how it is. You send emails out, and they may not be as effective as sending an email saying, hey, we want to give a 5-minute presentation to your club requesting money for this great project we're doing. So then here's where, again, back here, you would put all the different clubs where the money that's committed to that. And then if you're getting any clubs outside the district, or even you can get individuals or other non-Rotary groups participate. So you've worked through, you've established your funding. Now, the next thing is to submit the application. Well, a complete application requires you to fill out all the rest of those sections. And you've got a blank copy of this application that was sent to you by Kathy the other day. You have to get signatures. There's 3 project contacts within your club for a district grant. The club president for next Rotary year needs to be signing it. And you'll be doing this after July 1, so that makes it easy. And then there's a final report, progress reports due, and the person that will be responsible for that needs to sign that. Get a letter from the beneficiary cooperating organization that specifically states its responsibilities in how it will interact with Rotarians. And then, very important, you need to get commitment letters, emails, or copies of checks from the additional contributing clubs that show that they've either given you a check already or that they've made a firm commitment to fund it, because we need that to complete the application. So the next step is implementing the project. Well, like Margie said, don't start it until after you get approval from for your not just proposal, but for the application. And you probably can't start then until mid-July at the earliest due to that. Communicate is important. Communicate with your club members, your partners, your mentor, and how things are progressing. There may be a couple of you in the club that are involved in the project, but I'm sure the rest of your club members want to know what's going on. They want to share your excitement. If other clubs have given you money, don't just take the money and run. You want to give them positive feedback, or even negative. If there's challenges, let them know. Maybe they can help you with the implementation of the project. Take pictures. I mean, that's one thing we often forget. And try to find somebody that can take good pictures and maybe have a good quality cell phone or camera, because we want to be able to use photographs of your projects next year in this presentation. Or we may stick, you want to put them out at your district, at your website. And then there's potential that we'll be having a carousel of projects on the district website, sharing with other members in the Rotary, not just our district, but the world, about what great things you guys are doing. And again, I'll say maintain records. This is not the last time I'll say it. Maintaining records is very important. We need to be good stewards for these projects, for this money that's coming from Rotarians within our district, not just your club. Get out, get and keep receipts, because you're going to need those receipts to do your final report. Not like, 6 months, a year from now, you go, oh, I wonder what happened to that. Find a way to keep them and manage it, make it a lot easier when you're doing that report in the future. And keep good records in general. You're going to need this for reporting, but also I think you're going to need this for an institutional memory in your club. You may not do another grant for a few years and maybe different people, but your experiences and learnings could benefit future members of your club. So you have to submit reports. When you're done writing the application, sorry, you're not done writing. Because again, like talk about, there's important for stewardship. And you'll want to do, and let me bring up an example of that, or the blank form that you have. For some reason I lost my mouse. You also received this from Kathy. You have to give a report every 6 months, and 6 months from the day that the grants team says your project application is approved. If you finish your project within 6 months, all you have to do is that final report. But if not, every 6 months, you need to do a progress report. As you're doing your project, think about how you're going to document your story in the report. And then the story can be told in other ways too. What are the expected long-term community impacts of the project with specific numbers, not just we helped a bunch of people. There were 50 families or whatever the number might be that you're doing. How has the project provided community members with specific skills or knowledge that will allow them to help themselves? The sustainability component we talk about. How many Rotarians worked on the project? What did they do? And this needs to be more than just fundraising when you talk about Rotarian involvement. How many hours did it take to get the job done? How many people hours, member hours did you invest in this project? Include pictures when you do your reports. Include pictures of the grant app, what's going on. Tell a good story. And again, the story will be more broadly than just reporting to us as the district grants team. It'll be shared more broadly, shared within your club. Storytelling is very important, and photos do a great job in doing that. You'll need to have a detailed list of where the money came from, which we talked about, but that's kind of in some ways up in your application, but specifically, where did you spend the money? You're going to need to have receipts and proof that the club paid for the items listed in your report. And your mentors can always help you with this if you have challenges when it's time to do the reporting. So Tom.
Yes, it's time for our second poll question. Excuse me. What needs to be done to qualify a club for a district grant? Please complete the poll on your screen.
All right, we've shared the results.
Right.
So
Thank you,
everyone
Kathy.
answered all of the above.
All right. Thank you very much. Margie and Glenn have just gone through a lot of information, and I suspect you kind of are saying, oh, I can't remember all of this. What am I going to do? Well, you're not alone. There's lots of help available, lots of resources available for you. As Margie mentioned, when you first bring an idea forward, you will be assigned a mentor. Our mentors are part of the grants team, and they'll work alongside you with your grant proposal application to help make sure it's all put together correctly. I've been observing this as I meet with the grants committee monthly, and I'll have to tell you, these folks are so valuable and so eager to help the clubs that they're working with. So be sure that as you get into this process, you do work hand in hand with that mentor. We also have support in terms of if it's an international project with Jim Hunt, who is our district international service chair, and Jim can guide you through some of the issues that may arise as we're dealing with working in another country. There's also the quick reference guide that provides a lot of good information about the grant process. You've got a copy of this as well, and we'd recommend that you review that before you get started with the process of putting together your application. Again, I'm just going to repeat the mentor, how valuable they are. Make sure you include them as a partner, whether they're from your club or not, because they're really key to you having a successful project and feeling good about that. All in all, we'll just have to say, if you need help, ask, because all of us are here to help you in one way or another. And now it's time for another poll question. What is the deadline for submitting proposals for the 22-23 district grant?
Okay, I just shared the results. The deadline is June 3rd.
I told you I'd talk about document retention again. It may sound like a broken record, but this is really important. The impact of your project is probably the most important thing that you'll do, but this is important for a lot of reasons. You know why? You know, we are fiduciaries of the funds we receive. It's our job to make sure the dollars are spent appropriately. We have to be good stewards. We got to be accountable for where the money goes and if it's going into the right places. You know, what kind of documents, receipts, invoices, letters from vendors or beneficiaries, the grant application, copy of progress reports, final reports. And I think, like I've said before, this is important for your club's institutional memory. How, you know, besides what has to be reported, give the tools to other members in your club to be successful in the future. The reports themselves, you know, it's a recap of what you did. What was the cost? Who benefited? What was the impact provided? And the proof that the funds were spent appropriately. So a little bit about the principles of successful grants, things that we've seen that make grants better by when you do this. We talked about needs assessment. It's required for a global grant, but it's recommended for district grants too. You know, be sure that what you're doing is really going to benefit your targeted clientele. You know, make sure that you're doing the best job of addressing that need. Is it a real need? And is what your approach the best way of doing that? Have an organized implementation plan. If anybody here in your professional life have been involved in project management, you know, having that plan, when things are going to happen, what has to happen maybe before something else, who's going to do it, what are the resources that are going to be required in addition maybe to the money from the grant. And it helps, you know, with teamwork within your club. Have that communication. You know, have that within your club, with the organization you might be working with other clubs that have stepped up and donated money to your project, because they really want to know what's going on. Talked about being sustainable. And like Margie said, this is a requirement for global grants, and there's a process you have to go through. But we really like to see even local projects be sustainable at some level. You know, if you give a piece of equipment to somebody, this is probably more on an international, and it breaks down and they can't get spare parts or nobody knows how to operate it or repair it, you know, that's not very sustainable. So just kind of think about that. Is this going to really help your target audience in the long term? And that's stewardship again. You know, the Rotary name adds integrity to any project. But just like with anything, it's easy to blemish a name with poor stewardship. So think about that more broadly. And then celebrate. You know, what you've been successful, you've helped people, you've changed lives, you've had an impact. Promote that within your club and then also within your community. By talking about what the impacts you're having, that helps attract new members, that it helps when you're asking for participation in your fundraisers. So have that strong public image. So Tom.
Our last check on you to see if you're still with us. Please enter your name and your club in the chat box, please.
And while you're doing that, let's talk about a couple of little wrap-up items. And number one, I think as you can see from our numbers, that the importance of giving is really important. And if you think about it, last year or this current year, 21-22, we were able to give, excuse me, we were able to give $91,600 towards district grants, but we also had a matching component that went towards global grants, another $91,600. Now, all of those global grants are matched by 80% at RI. So remember, that's money that we have given, and we're all part of that puzzle of saying, hey, I'd like to do this, and we have that ability. I don't think there's another charity that has that opportunity. Now, any other comments on giving at all, Tom?
Thanks, Marge. Yes, just to give you some numbers to kind of think about, we're well on our way to matching the record contributions that this district provided to the annual fund last year at $470,000, and I think we'll get there again this year. What that amounted to is a per capita of $185 for every Rotarian in our district. But the challenge we have, excuse me, is that only about half of the Rotarians in our clubs made gifts to the Rotary Foundation. So encourage everybody to make a gift, even that gift at $25, $100, whatever it may be, that's comfortable and capable for them to do. So please just encourage them. As I said earlier, have your club set a goal and keep that out in front of people. Thanks, Margie.
All right, now getting qualified, and I know that every year there's confusion about the MOUs, the Memorandums of Understanding. And what we're asking for is the president who will take command on July 1, 2022. That is the president that signs in that box. Then there's another one that says president-elect. That is the person that will take command of the club on July 1st, 2023. Now, I understand some clubs don't have a president-elect. That's okay. Pick somebody who has long-standing membership in your club, the secretary. It could be the treasurer or any other person who, really is an active Rotarian in your club. And then, of course, once you've got a president-elect, let us know. So I hope that takes some of the mystery out of who the heck signs those two particular documents. And remember, that's not something that we thought of here. That is a qualification from Rotary International. Any other comments on that, Tom, Glenn?
I think you got it.
You've got it covered.
All right. A couple of key takeaways. All ideas are really great. So I hope that each and every one of you go back to your club and say, you know what, let's do something in the community. Or I know of something happening in Uganda or Nicaragua, and maybe we could lend a hand there. So don't just think, okay, I've been to the seminar, I'm done with it. Go back and take action, because as Rotarians, we always want to be people of action. So anybody else with any key takeaways?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have a
did I
ques-
mention documents and document retention?
Once
Yeah.
or twice.
I mean, that's important. And the other thing I think is real important is taking pictures, taking those photographs of your project, even working on it, planning, whatever. Because, and one key learning too, that if your club has a website and it's got that carousel of photographs at the top, you've got to take your pictures in landscape. That's just the way they work there. So remember that when you're photographing. So that's a takeaway, I think, just on in general beyond the grants. But take lots of pictures.
Yeah, we
I
have
had a
people.
question.
Oh, sure, Jeff, go ahead.
This is Jeff Harnley of Red Wing Club. Our president right now is going to continue to be president for 22, 23. Can he sign for both this year and the next year, or do I have to have another person?
Nope, if he's the person, you can, if that's the president and the president-elect, those are the two people that would be part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Boy, that's a glutton for punishment. Okay, I think there were a couple questions in the chat group, but I can't see them. Okay, Ann, you've got a question. Go for it.
Yeah, as the club contribution are in-kind donations eligible for that, or does it have to be cash?
The club contribution would have to be cash. But obviously you can have in-kind contributions, but what would the club be doing for in-kind contributions in?
Oh, I'm just thinking, let's say we were building something and we have a Rotarian who owns the lumber yard. That would be an in-kind donation that they would just give us lumber.
Sorry about that. That would be listed, down below that it is a contribution, but it's not part of the cash contributions. We will match cash contributions from your club or any other club in the district or any district in the world, 5950, 5580, any other district. So District 5960, unlike a lot of districts, we do, and that's the editorial, of course, we do match club contributions from other areas other than District 5960. So does that answer your question? Otherwise, we can talk about it further offline. Sounds good.
Margie, I don't know
right.
if you can see the chat I've got going. If I'm sharing that, it's got questions. There's one from Charles Cogan.
Okay, Charlie. Charlie, do you want to give us? Oh,
Yeah, the question was some clubs, for example, Northfield has several returned Peace Corps volunteers and they all want to do projects in the countries where they served. Plus we have a couple of professors from St. Olaf who've got long-standing projects. So we've got a lot of projects. I know Rick Olson has had the same problem at Prior Lake, where you've got this great club, you've got all these projects, but then you have to choose one. Does the district have a way of helping us? It seems like it might be a good mentoring process informally for us to find clubs who haven't had a chance to do a project, work with them and say, hey, would you be willing to take the lead on this? And then we'll walk it together. And then it gives them a great introduction to it. But I know when we go out and try to do that in our entrepreneurial way, some clubs will say, well, it's really not our project. We shouldn't be the lead on that one. But then it kind of keeps the really active clubs down to one project. It can be, 5 years before, so that's kind of a broad, throw it out there question.
I understand that. Now, maybe that's something where Northfield can say, hey, we've got some great project ideas, and send it out to clubs that are qualified and say, would you be interested? Because this is serving humanity and it's not like, oh, it's strictly Northfield where some clubs would say, well, it's not my community. So maybe that's a way for Northfield to get the word out about great ideas that other clubs, because you've already got a partnership, I'm assuming, with the international organization, correct? You're muted.
Only because we're supposed to mute when we're not talking. Yes, yeah, right. We do have partners.
Yeah.
We have partners for all of them.
Yeah, so I guess if any of you online are interested and you don't have a great idea, talk to Charlie. He might have something that that your club may want to take on and venture in. It's sort of like it's time to maybe shake off some of our scare tactics that, you know, oh, I don't think we could handle that. Yeah, you could. Don't worry about it. There's always that learning curve for each and every one of us all the time. I'm learning every single day about new things that are required. So, you know, don't let that scare you off. Get out of your comfort zone and, you know, remember we're people of action and we want to do good in the world. Sometimes we just don't know how to go about it. So any other questions?
Yeah, Margie,
feel-
there's another one in the chat from Bill Mack, and the answer is yes. I'll read it. It says, this district literacy team has grants available. I assume this grant is totally separate from the district grants, and yes.
Correct. Now, there was a question about what's the split between when we get that again, the editorial way, I'm, you know, speaking for the district here. When the district gets their DDF allotment, we have to at least have a minimum of 50% going to the global grant side. And the rest, I mean, like we could do 75% to the global grant side if we decided, but our district has, in my past recollection, probably the last 15 years for sure, they have done 50% of that DDF available to global grants and 50% to district grants. So does that answer the question that I don't know who somebody put into the chat box?
I think, Margie, part of the question was also of the district grants, what's the split between local projects and international projects?
Oh, okay. Well, this last year in 2020, there were 14 local and 6 international. So, you know, and sometimes it's kind of even, but last year I know that there were 6 international, 14 local. So, you know, so we do a fair number of international grants, which is great. So any other questions other than that? And if you have questions, be sure to email any one of us. We like to say we're here to help you in any way, shape, or form, and that truly is the case. But I would like to personally thank you for attending this grants management seminar. We all hope that you took away some information that will help you in the grant process, and more importantly, that you're looking forward to creating positive peace in the world with your grant. Now, you do have homework. We talked about the MOUs. There's 2 MOUs, the TRF and then the District 5960 addendum that you were sent, and please submit those by email to Kathy. And, you know, this will make sure that you finish the qualifications to be qualified for a 22-23 district grant. So thank you very much, and go out and enjoy your windy Saturday.
Thank you for coming.